welcome back. This is episode 68. This is of Stone and Clay. I'm here with Dustin Grigg, my man. Thanks for joining us, bro.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. We have a lot to talk about. Dustin's got a wild life story about addiction and, you know, your journey with sobriety and recovery, and probably just a fundamentally different life than I had.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, but so I do want to give you your flowers. You said you've been sober for 2 years now.
2 years off of everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah, 10 years.
That's awesome. 10 years off of
my drug of choice,
which was
heroin.
The dark H.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, let's take it back a little bit. You said you grew up with essentially you and two brothers using heroin.
Yeah.
In the house. So take me back to your first kind of experience with maybe not even heroin. What was kind of what got you into substance abuse?
Yeah.
Was it are your brothers older than you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, when my mom obviously remarried, and the husband that she married had a son and a daughter. Mm-hmm. And come to find out, the son was an addict. My only brother was an addict.
So how old were you at this time?
I was 7. Okay. Probably 7, 8.
Yeah.
And I was always the lookout type of person. I would make sure parents weren't coming down when they were doing their things. And
you're just as a younger child, you're just like kind of happy to be included, right?
Yeah,
you don't really know what's going on. You might think it's bad, but you don't really.
I always felt at that age, you're so young and so vulnerable that I feel like if my older brothers are doing it, it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's just something that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And eventually the dark side's going to win.
So did you see him doing hard stuff when you were that young?
Yeah.
Like heroin? And
yeah.
So what is that? How do you conceptualize that as someone that young? Are you just like, did it kind of make you sad back then because you kind of innately knew something was wrong? Or were you just like, hey, the brothers are getting lit tonight? I don't know.
Yeah, so I think at that time, I didn't really know what it was. I knew about drugs, obviously, from, watching TV and, like movies and everything like that. But when it actually came to physically in person, my brothers acted pretty normal for the most part. It really didn't start taking off with like the heroin until probably I was about 14. So my older brothers were, 16 to 19, and then that took off. But
did you start like drinking or smoking weed or anything when you were pretty young?
Yeah. So I started drinking, I'd say probably at 14.
I probably didn't even have a Mountain Dew till I was 15.
Yeah, my dad's side is pretty big alcoholics over there.
Yeah.
And, it kind of just ran in the family wherever I went. If I went to my dad's up in Washington or I stayed here, I was around my brothers. So I kind of couldn't escape it at the time, but I was young, so I don't think I wanted to escape it. I just wanted to be around them too.
Yeah. Yeah. So initially you're not drinking and stuff like to forget your life. It's just culture. Yeah. It's just what people are doing.
Recreational for sure.
You just there's just beer around the house and
yeah. Just to fit in pretty much. Yeah. I just wanted to spend time with my older brothers, and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. So when did you first like do a hard substance?
So the first time I did Oxycontin, I was coming back from snowboarding with my brother Chase, and I was probably 15 or 16 at the time. And, after snowboarding, you get really sore. And so I asked my brother if he had any ibuprofen or whatnot. And
he's like, I got a
no.
really nice ibuprofen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Pretty much. He's like, no, but I have an Oxycontin.
Yeah.
And
the Beverly Hills of ibuprofen.
And I knew it was stronger than a Loratab,
sure.
But I didn't know the consent. And I asked him how it made you feel, and he's like, just try it.
Yeah.
And kind of once that first one went down the throat and
Mm-hmm.
I felt it, it was kind of over from there. I
Yeah.
just fell in love.
Was that so? Help me understand a little bit. The highest I've been is like at the dentist, you know, but like I've taken Lortab for whatever when I got my wisdom teeth out. I've taken I think Percocet for some injury, but I never had a like whatever high I had from that. It was just kind of like just felt kind of goofy and silly and obviously relaxed,
Yeah.
but like it was never much euphoria or anything that to me felt addictive.
See, and that's the thing. Like some people will feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's why some people only enjoy uppers to
Yeah,
downers, you
yeah.
know. And for me, it honestly felt like I was floating on a cloud.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a phrase today on a book that I'm listening to from Matthew Perry,
Mm-hmm.
and he was an addict. And he said, when that drug enters your system, it feels like warm honey.
Mm-hmm.
And that analogy like hit home,
Yeah,
you know, because that's pretty much what it feels like. It's just like a melting feeling,
yeah,
and all your worries, problems gone.
right. So all that from just one oxy.
That's where it started.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So how long were you just kind of on pills for a while before you went to heroin?
Yeah. It was strictly, you know, Oxycontins, and was doing that all throughout from,
Were you doing like a ton?
was probably doing, you know, oxys back then were $80 a pill,
Mm-hmm.
$80, 80 milligrams.
Yeah.
And, um, you know, at 16, 17 years old, you're in school, you don't have a lot of money and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And so you got to do some not so good things,
Yeah, yeah.
pawn some things,
Uh-huh.
you know. And I was probably doing one or two a day.
Gotcha.
So, you know, $160 a day.
Yeah.
It adds up.
Yeah.
That's why the dirty H came into
Yeah,
play.
it's like, dude, it's like imagine if you were going to Ruth's Chris every single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like at least I mean that's a little healthier. It's a lot of meat, but yeah, so at what point did that I feel like that's usually because oxy's basically like synthetic heroin,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
So at what point did you cuz your brothers were already using,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So did they like, hey, you should try this now?
No. So when I got to an age where I knew what was going on,
Mm-hmm.
they were really good at kind of hiding it from me.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really see them a lot
Mm-hmm.
when I knew.
Yeah.
And I told myself, you know, I would never go to heroin. You
Yeah.
know, like this is my limit. And I ended up finding some needles in my brother's backpack, and I was probably 18 at the time. And, you know, I just broke down and I was like, you know, I didn't think you'd ever do this,
Yeah.
you know, and it,
Were you like scared or excited
when I found the needles,
when you were
or-
like about to like do it for the first time?
yeah, I was,
Because you probably
I was-
in your head you're probably like, I'm about to get a wild high that like I haven't had before.
I was very intrigued,
Yeah.
because I started smoking heroin,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said I'd never go to a needle or anything.
Yeah.
And I guess we haven't even got to the heroin part yet.
Yeah.
But oxys got too expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's why you got to go to something cheaper and you can get more bang for your buck.
Right.
You know, started smoking it, and then I found the needles in my brother's backpack, and you know, I just said I would never do that in my life. And I was with one of my, I wouldn't call him a buddy, but you know, people that I associated with back
Yeah.
then doing those things. And he told me to try this out for the first time. He said it's the best high you'll ever have.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're already in, you know, the depths of hell,
Mm-hmm.
how much further can you go?
Yeah.
You know? And so that pretty much was my thought process, and tried it, loved it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, it just went down.
Is it so? You always see on like movies and TV and stuff, you see people like shooting heroin and they a lot of times just kind of pass out,
Yeah.
right? They're just kind of out for the count.
Not off.
Is that your normal experience?
It's probably 60%.
Does it depend on the dosage?
Depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the quality.
Mhm.
Depends on how much you did. But yeah, it's very, very common.
Yeah. Is it true that that first high is the best high you'll ever get and you're kind of always chasing that?
You are kind of always chasing it,
Yeah.
but as an addict, every high is a good high.
Sure.
Until you get to a point where you're just doing it to not get sick.
Right. So how long does that take?
I think it just depends on the person.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it probably took maybe 6 to 8 months from going from like 1 or 2 balloons to 3 balloons. And then, you know, you kind of have your top out, you max out before you pass out type of thing.
Yeah.
And I think I got to maybe like 5 or 6 balloons in a day. And, you know, that was the top.
How expensive is that?
That's the thing. It was only $60.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of people switch from oxy to heroin.
Yeah.
Even
So
though
much cheaper.
It's more dangerous.
Yeah.
But way more
dangerous, you know, especially with fentanyl. You know, you don't know what's in it and you don't know where it's coming from.
Right.
And, you know, at least for, you know, oxys, they can still fake them, you know, but for the most part back then, we knew that they were all 100% legitimate.
Right.
And so we knew what we were getting. And with the heroin, you just don't know.
Yeah. So are you like deep into heroin and stuff like in high school then?
I'm deep into the Oxycontin and I'm dabbling in the heroin.
Gotcha.
So I was a big sports guy, you know, played football my whole life, and every single senior high school game I ever played in, I was completely gone off of Oxycontins.
Yeah.
You know, couldn't feel a thing, and I felt like I still played great.
But you can function cognitively enough, yeah.
Yeah, oxys and pills are one thing. Like,
right.
You can function, you can, you know, talk, you can have normal conversations, and, you know, I felt like I was on top of the world with that.
Right.
Heroin, on the other hand, just completely demoralizes you and breaks you down, and you don't realize it,
right?
But the people around you can see it, you know, within
you look like a zombie.
Yeah.
So walk me through, like, when did it get to kind of its apex where you're like, my life's completely out of control, like I'm not just dabbling and having fun and getting high when I want to, like this is consuming my whole life?
When I got back from college. So 2011, you know, I got back, I did a year up at Utah State and played football up there. And then when I got back, that's just where things took a turn.
And sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Is the increase in drug use, is it becoming a coping mechanism, or is it just like almost a chemical thing where you're just like, I've been using it so long, my body just wants more? Or are you starting to realize like, hey, this is, like you said, I'm already in hell, so this is a good way to deal with my hell?
It's all of it.
Yeah.
It's all of it. You know, the world can be a very dark place if you let it. And when you're in that type of environment, obviously you're going to result back to what you're comfortable with. For me, it was heroin. So that was my coping mechanism. Yeah. And I mean, like I said earlier, everyone else can see it. And when everyone else can see it and they can tell you, like, you know, you look this way, or, you know, you just look like a skeleton, man. You're not here. You have no color in your face. I just didn't want to hear that. Yeah. You know, I didn't think I looked bad, you know, and you never do as an addict, I don't think.
Sure.
I did when I was at the very end of my straw.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, okay, I can see what they see now.
Yeah, because if you start to confront your demons, they're either going to eat you alive or you're going to decide, oh, I need to face my demons. But if you don't acknowledge them,
Yeah.
it's easy to just, continue to hide.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was actually Mother's Day of 2011. No, 2012, sorry. 2012 Mother's Day. And my mom, I walked out of the house and just said, I'm leaving, and got into an argument and a fight with my stepdad and my mom, and went and picked up, and they ended up finding me. I don't know how, because I didn't have a phone, didn't have a car, and they said, do you want to go up to treatment right now for a Mother's Day present?
Yeah.
And I'm a mama's boy.
Sure.
So I wanted to make her feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made that decision to say yes,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't fully in it.
Yeah, you weren't really ready.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. I just wanted to do it to make her happy.
Was it like a 30-day treatment center?
So I went to detox first at Lakeview Hospital when they actually did detox.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for 6 days. And then I went up to a place called Wasatch Recovery up in Cottonwood Heights. We didn't have money or anything, and the owners up there, their name's Mark and Jeff Richards, shout out to them. They really pretty much took me under their wing, and they just said, don't care about the money, just want to get you help.
Yeah, yeah.
And I stayed there for 40 days, and after 30 days you can either leave. I stayed for 40, and I was like, I'm out of here. This is the longest I've been sober since I was, 13, 14 years old. I'm gone. Everyone said, you're not ready.
Yeah.
And I left. And the next probably 2 days after that, I relapsed, and I did more heroin in like 2 months than I had done in the previous 2 years.
Yeah. So when you were like getting ready to leave treatment, were you already in your head like, yo, I'm going to go use, or were you like feeling good and stuff?
That was in my head the second I walked into treatment.
Right.
Yeah, that I was going to use.
Yeah.
Like I knew in my head I wasn't done.
Yeah.
And when you get that in your head as an addict, there's no change in that mentality.
Yeah. So you're just kind of buying your time.
Yeah.
You're like, as soon as I'm out of here,
I'm buying my 30 days at least.
Yeah.
So I can leave.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's funny. I watched this documentary the other day about meth addiction. And have you ever used meth?
I used it for maybe a week.
Yeah, not for you?
Not for me. And that's because I couldn't get heroin.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just needed
something
to take the edge off. But that definitely wasn't the edge that I wanted.
What is that? How do you feel when you're on meth?
For me, I was just paranoid.
Yeah.
I was so jittery and just wide-eyed type of thing for me. And I hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just like a constant hand sweating.
Right.
Not for me.
And you like your teeth.
I love my teeth.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was watching this documentary, and this guy goes to jail for like, I don't know, a month or a few weeks or something for possession. And then his mom's an addict too. And she goes and picks him up, and she's crying, and she's like, I'm so glad you're coming home, baby. And they just go right into the trailer, and they both just put needles in their arms. It's crazy how, like you said, when you're not ready to quit, you're just not going to. And that's the thing. It's like, that's how it is with anything in life, any addiction or anything. Like, even if it's not that bad, like if you're trying to lose weight, like, it's just not going to happen until you're ready.
Yeah.
You might like have a motivational conversation with a buddy, and they're like, bro, you need to shed some LBs. And then you're like, yeah, I'm feeling good. And then you like eat a kind of healthy sandwich, and then you get home and you're like, dude, I'm going to pound this bag of Cheetos.
Yeah.
Because you're not ready to.
Some ice cream or something.
Yeah, whatever. You just, when you're not ready, you're not ready.
Yeah. Like you said, anything in life, you have to have that mindset and that mentality that like, I'm going to wrestle this thing to the ground.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So you come out of rehab. It did essentially nothing for you.
No.
Were you doing a lot of like therapy and stuff in there?
Yeah. So you did like group therapy, you did individual therapy, and then, you went to your AAs and NA meetings. But, those, not bashing any of those meetings at all. I know that they help a ton of people, and it's great if that helps you,
Yeah.
but those meetings just weren't for me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I don't like to hear other people's, like, what they're going through. It just kind of triggers me, like, especially when you're in your active phase of addiction.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you're around all these addicts or alcoholics, and they're just telling you how hard their story is and stuff, and it just such a negative energy to me that just makes me want to numb it.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. So what did you end up using again for years and then go back to rehab? What was
So after rehab, I relapsed 2 days later, and I did more heroin in, you know, a month or 2 months than I had done in the previous years. And I was starting to see visions of, like, me dying. And
like hallucinations or
that's something that I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I know that I saw them, you know, like, in my head. I don't know if they were fully in my head or, like, I was actually hallucinating.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But I know that I saw me dying if I was to continue down this road. And the recovery center that I went to, they are booked out for months in advance.
Yeah, yeah.
And luckily, I called up the owner and I was like, hey, I really need some help this time. This is my choice. I was like, is there any way you can fit me in again? And luckily, he was like, a bed just opened. It's yours. Yeah. And this time around, I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to beat this thing.
So how long was this after your first stint?
3 months after?
Okay.
So it was pretty quick after.
Okay, so you kind of came out, raged,
Yeah.
used all the heroin in the tri-state area,
Yeah.
and then we're like, okay, now I'm ready.
Yeah.
So, and was it kind of those visions you said that for you was a catalyst
Yeah.
to change?
That was one of the main ones, but it was also, I physically saw the pain I was putting my mother towards, you know.
And this whole time your brothers are both using still?
Yeah, they're out of the house. And so my mom isn't physically seeing them or anything, but me, I'm still living at home. And so she sees me all messed up every single day.
And are you working this whole time?
Dude, when you're an addict like that, you really can't keep a job. You know, it's the drugs or nothing.
Did you have a lot of jobs that you like had for a week?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say probably 30 jobs.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
You know, work for a week, 2 weeks just to get that paycheck.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I would go spend it.
Right.
Get another job.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't want to show up on Monday because my paycheck was gone.
Yeah.
And I felt, you know, like crap from withdrawing because I didn't have money.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to go to work.
Yeah. Dude, tell me about the hell of withdrawals. So I'm sure you've felt them a few times, right? Like that initial detox, you know, I hear how, just what it does to you physically.
So when you're in the hospital detoxing, I'll take that any day over doing it by yourself.
Right, right.
You know, I've done it by myself probably 5 out of the 6 times. And every time is, you know, you feel like your bones are breaking. You're constantly hot, but once you get hot, you're constantly shivering cold. You just feel like your insides are like being stretched, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, a day feels like a week, and, you know, an hour just feels like it lasts a day.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't think it'll ever end, but, you know, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Is it that initial torture? What does that usually last? A few days, a week?
It depends on how much you've done. It depends on the person. Usually I'd say the worst of it is up to probably a week, week and a half.
Wow.
And then it starts to mellow out. But
yeah, dude, no wonder people have such a hard time getting off it.
Yeah.
Because especially if you've tried detoxing before, you're like, okay, so in order for me to quit, I have to go through hell.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like that's a tough pill to swallow.
It's just way easier.
Especially when you're not like, you're not at your best mentally.
No.
You know,
No.
it's not like you're like, okay, I'm about to go to the Marine Corps and do buds. Like,
Right.
I'm in a good headspace. Let's go.
No.
You know, you're like,
So far from
you're
that.
barely alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's keeping you alive, you feel like, is the drugs.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're not the same without the drugs. Like, at that point, you're just trying to not be sick. And, like, you really don't even get messed up anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you don't want to feel like crap.
Yeah.
It's a hard pill.
So 3 months later, you go to rehab again.
Yeah.
Doesn't work again.
It works.
It worked.
It works. Yeah. So this time I was like, I know that I'm going to die.
You were kind of operating on fear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fear. And, you know, I had already had people die around me. And knowing that me and my two brothers were doing it.
Yeah.
My brother Chase, who's from my stepdad, me and him weren't that close, but me and my brother Ryan, who is my only blood brother,
Yeah.
me and him are extremely, extremely close. And, you know, me and him talked and we're like, we can't do this to mom.
Yeah.
You know, we need to do something. And you always look to an older brother for kind of inspiration or whatever you want to call it. But at this particular moment, he looked towards me and I made that first step to be like, I'm getting myself help.
Yeah.
And he followed a week later and went to a different treatment center and got help.
Yeah. So this time you go in with the right mindset.
Yeah.
Is the detox just as bad, if not worse?
Yeah, the detox was pretty brutal. I actually had to detox in treatment, and so they don't.
That's worse than a hospital.
It's like you're at home,
Yeah.
but you have to go to meetings and you have to do therapy.
Yeah.
When really, if you're detoxing, all you want to do is lay in bed, not be bothered by anybody.
Yeah.
And but
and they're like, Dustin, we got a meeting in 10 minutes.
Wake up 7 o'clock, make your bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it went in with the right mindset and told everyone there that you're going to have to kick me out because I'm not leaving until like I learn everything I need to learn in order to make it in the outside world.
So you started taking the therapy and stuff serious.
Yeah.
What was it that clicked for you? You feel like on like an emotional, intellectual level where you're like, now I feel like I have some tools where I can go on the outside and not use again.
So I was never like, my mom was very religious. We grew up Mormon, but I never got into it like she has.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be hard when you're
very hard
doing drugs all the time.
But that's where treatment this time around just helped me exponentially. You know, I was reading scriptures.
So let's back up. The whole time that you're using and everything, like you said, you didn't really buy into the religious aspect growing up.
No.
But did you have any sort of relationship with God? Did you feel like
I was baptized.
Yeah. But I just mean your own personal belief. Did you feel like there was a God?
So during the times of my active addiction, it was hard to determine if there was a God.
Yeah. It's probably not something you even want to think about.
The only time I remember talking to God was when I was in the shit.
Yeah.
And I was always asking for help, you know. I didn't want to be that type of person to always just ask for help. And so I stopped and knew that I wanted to get on like a deeper level of not just, hey, I'm going through this, help me.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get to a point where higher power, God, whatever you believe in as a person, individual, I wanted to be able to just talk to that being and have a normal conversation and not always ask for help. And that's kind of what I strived on this time in treatment.
Yeah.
And I felt like the first place to kind of do that was reading even just little parts of scriptures.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And, I started feeling better.
Mm-hmm. So what about kind of introducing God into your life sort of gave you the tools to feel like, okay, when I get out of here, I can actually stay clean this time? Did it give you like just a sense of hope you hadn't had before?
Yeah.
A sense of purpose?
Yeah. I definitely hadn't found my purpose yet.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely a sense of hope. And just seeing my progress, it made me feel like I was worthy of more.
Yeah.
And not just, a bum or an addict on the street type of thing, that this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I always had this feeling inside me that I'm meant for something. Like, everyone's meant for something in this world. I don't care who you are. You always have a purpose.
Yeah.
It's just finding that purpose in your life that I feel like is a challenge to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to find mine.
Yeah.
But
Well, dude, hope is such a complicated thing. Like, I've never struggled with any serious addiction. My life has been pretty good in a lot of senses, but a lot of times I've really struggled with hope because I mean, hope and faith are pretty synonymous, right? But to hope for something that you're like, I've never had it.
Yeah.
So like, why am I hoping that it's magically going to come now? When you're in the throes of addiction, you're like, yeah, I hope I get better, but like,
Right.
do I really have any hope? Because I know I'm just going to go relapse again. Like, like I hope, I find love, but I've continually not found it in the past. Right. So where's this hope coming from?
Yeah.
But I think without God, like, it's exponentially harder.
Yeah. I think so too. Like I said, I'm still trying to find that. I know that being spiritually awakened is a very good stepping stone and a good point where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And, I'm just going to try to keep going as much as I can.
Yeah. So when you got out, how quickly did you feel like a very serious temptation?
Oh, right away.
Yeah.
Right away.
Were you like, okay, I'm outside the facility. Like, I know heroin's accessible now. At least while you're in treatment, you're feeling good. You're like, I couldn't have it if I wanted it.
Yeah.
So there's some peace to that.
There's some peace to that, but getting out, like I said earlier, I didn't have a car or anything. So my mom, took me back home, and you drive past all these places that you've picked up heroin from, or you shot up right there.
Yeah.
And I see a bus, because I took the bus all the time to Salt Lake, and it just triggers you in that way. And if you haven't calloused your mind to take these triggers, you're just gonna fail.
Yeah. So how did you deal with those initial temptations? Just put your hands on ice?
Honestly, it's the more you say no in your head, the easier it'll be.
Yeah.
And it was extremely hard at the very beginning, because you're out, you're free, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I actually just tried to stay home as much as I could, in the presence of my mother, and it worked out for me.
Did you feel like you had to proactively like cut a bunch of people out of your life? Because I'm sure you had a bunch of homies
100%
that are just like, yo, you're back. Let's,
Yeah. No, I had to cut ties with 90% of my friend group.
Wow. Yeah.
But at the time, that's who I thought they were. They were my friends.
Yeah.
Come to find out, they were just, people you did drugs with.
Right.
You see people's true colors when you try to elevate your life, and they're still down here.
Right.
And they just try to take you down with them. And as long as you have that, like I said, that calloused mind, you're not going back there.
Yeah. It's funny. I heard this wise thing by our dearest brother Snoop Dogg.
Mm-hmm.
he was saying the tough thing about when you have kind of friends that aren't on your level is he's like you're right here and they're right here, and the problem is if you go down to meet them you lose,
Right.
and so they need to come up and meet you, which is fine, but most people just aren't down for
Yeah,
that.
they don't want to come up there.
Yeah, and so you're like, well, that's my homie. Like I want to stay close, but like I can't afford to go down.
Right.
You know.
Right. And that's exactly right. You
Yeah.
know, it's, I don't know, looking back on it, like the energy that you put into finding drugs, getting the drugs, getting the money, like if that was a job,
Yeah.
we would all be millionaires,
Right,
you know, that
right.
we're drug addicts.
Yeah, I saw this TikTok the other day. This girl was like, if you want something in life, just ask yourself, what would a crackhead do?
Exactly, 100%. You know, he would do anything
Right.
to get it.
What's some of? Do you have some crazy stories of some things you did when you're like, bro, I don't have any money, I gotta get high right now?
Man, it was just pawning things.
Yeah.
Like pawned my mom's wedding ring and never got it back.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that was very hard.
Did you steal it from her finger while she's sleeping?
So she didn't wear it a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just took it,
Yeah.
pawned it, and like everything in the house I pawned.
In your head, are you like, I'm sure I can get this back?
100%.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole idea is, all right, I'm going to pawn this. I'm going to get my fix. I'm going to work and I'll get it right back out in 2 weeks. She'll never even know.
Yeah.
And once you get paid again or whatnot, or you get a little bit more money to go get the ring out or whatnot.
Well, you forget that Burger King takes out taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You just go right back to the block and get your fix.
Yeah. So, what was your relationship like with your mom in those moments when she finds out you pawned her ring? What's that conversation like?
Very brokenhearted for me.
Yeah.
And for her.
Sure.
But you know, when you're in it like that, you don't care about other people's feelings. You know, it's so hard to even have emotions for them, you know, for yourself. You know, your emotions are gone, and all you care about is just getting high.
Yeah, it's just kind of survival.
Yeah, that's it. You know, you don't care about your family at all. It's you against the world. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing to remember. I think sometimes when people like don't have any experience around addicts, they think like, how could they do that? They're such monsters. And I mean, it kind of just turns you into a monster, you know? And that's not, it's really sad and heartbreaking, but that's not like your true character.
No,
it's just,
Yeah, it's definitely not anyone's true identity of who they actually are as a person. The drugs just mask who you are.
Yeah. And
turn you into someone they want you to be.
Right.
And as long as you're strong enough to get out of it, you'll never be that person.
So you got out, you finally, you know, you kind of cut ties with the homies. And did you have any small relapses, or you just got out and you were...
No, didn't have any relapses with my drug of choice.
Were you still drinking?
I was still drinking. Yeah, still drinking.
You popping pills?
No. Nope. No pills, no opiates at all. But that's where drinking really came involved. And I always felt like if I wasn't doing my drug of choice, I needed something else to fill that hole type of thing. And drinking came into play pretty heavily. And then it led to drinking and cocaine, and then, you know, Xanax, and it was just starting a new addiction all over again. Just a different one. Yeah,
it's funny. I watched this podcast with Steve-O from Jackass.
Yeah.
And he was, you know, he said he used, you know, everything in the book, and then he finally gets clean, and then he's like, and then I realized I basically had a sex addiction. You know, he's like, so I stopped using substance, and then I realized for years I had a complete and total sex addiction. And he's like, and so I go to like Sexaholics Anonymous meetings. I get clean from that. I don't have any relations for like a year and a half. And then he's like, and then I realize I'm a total food addict. Like I'm eating nonstop. I'm like,
It's replacing one
yeah,
thing for another.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So it had to be a weird feeling where you probably feel so much joy and pride from like relinquishing this beast
Right.
of heroin, and then you kind of slip into alcohol and cocaine and Xanax and stuff. Did you kind of feel like this is more sustainable? I can still live a life this way.
So with the alcohol, yeah,
Yeah,
100%, because it's a social thing. You
sure.
know, it's more people drink alcohol in the country than not, pretty much, I
Yeah,
think. And it was just such a social thing, you know, changed my sceneries. And that's kind of where the darkness arose
yeah.
again. We honestly didn't think it was bad, but the amount that we were drinking
Mhm.
was just
You're
exponential.
just blacking out every night or
Yeah,
most
it
nights.
was not even blacking out. It was just staying up because we were
Oh,
just
because you're using
drinking all
cocaine.
night and using cocaine. And, you know, you felt like crap the next day. So we just didn't go to sleep and just started drinking once
So
the
did
sun
you
rose.
have a more so since you had been kind of done with heroin for a little bit, had you gotten more consistent jobs or were you still just kind of working?
Yeah, I was just kind of still in and out, trying to find my groove
Mhm.
with maintaining a job. Because, like we said before, I was so in and out of every job I ever had that, you know, it wasn't a routine for me to stay at a company for a long period of
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And so I kind of had to find that in myself to be like, you know, if you don't like this job, you still got to stay until you
Yeah.
find something else later on down the road.
Right,
You
right,
got
right.
bills to pay and
Yeah.
everything. And, you know, I was still having,
And it's not cheap to drink every night either.
no, not cheap to drink. It's not cheap to really do anything. You
Yeah.
know, you got to have some sort of income to do these things. And that's where I found my wife, and she put me on the straight and narrow when it comes to work.
Mm.
And
So you met your wife while you were being a knucklehead though.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're using coke and Xanax and stuff. Was she did you kind of hide it from her or was she just kind of okay with it?
Oh, she was drinking too.
Yeah, yeah,
She
yeah.
was drinking. So, you know, the Xanax came in a little later
Mhm.
after we reconnected
Mhm.
again. But we were using alcohol and a lot of cocaine together.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
together we were doing that. And that went on for
Was that her first time using serious drugs?
she dabbled a little bit
Mhm.
in high school.
Yeah.
But I think the extent of the cocaine, that
Mhm.
was the most that she'd done.
How addictive is cocaine compared to other drugs?
Depends on if you're an upper or downer type of person.
Right.
You know, for me, I just did it because it was social. You know,
Mhm.
I was around people that were doing it, and you know, the alcohol is a downer, and when you mix it with an upper, you kind of level out. And like, I never did cocaine when it was just cocaine alone.
Right.
Like, I can't do that. So for me, it wasn't that hard to like say, okay, I'm done with cocaine type of
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
It was the alcohol that was hard
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. Okay, so at what point were you like again, you're kind of back in the same situation. You're like, okay, my life is trash now because I'm just drinking every night. I'm doing coke. Like, did you have another sort of existential crisis or were you, what happened?
So I was still kind of trying to find my way with a job.
Mhm.
And this time, me and my wife had moved in together in our first apartment. And I just couldn't keep having money come in. You
Yeah.
know, I was pretty broke.
Yeah.
And she pretty much gave me an ultimatum type of thing, saying I can't keep doing this. I can't keep supporting both of our lives and our drinking.
Right.
And you know, it was kind of a real first eye opener for me when it came to a serious relationship that I need to get my shit together.
Yeah.
And so I really, really slowed down on the drinking and didn't do the cocaine anymore.
Yeah.
And just kind of navigated life, and it went really well for a little bit of time.
Yeah. Did you so you said, so your initial like sobriety with heroin, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so you had 8 years of slogging through alcohol and coke and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took you a really long time to kick that other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. The other stuff,
it probably didn't have as much of
it didn't have that psychological effect on me. Yeah. Just like that, you know, but I think alcohol is just, for the people that are drinking, just such a social thing. Like I was never, I didn't consider myself an alcoholic. Like I didn't wake up in the morning and pour myself a drink and just drink all day. It was mainly just when I was, you know, partying with people and doing cocaine.
Yeah, which was every night.
It was probably like 4 times a week, you know, and the other 3 nights I would try to sleep.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
And just
sleep on the Sabbath. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it dwindled down after a good period of time, and then Xanax and kratom came into the picture.
What's kratom?
So kratom, it's a plant from like Indonesia, and they sell it at gas stations and everything. But I heard from a friend of mine that he said, "Have you ever taken one of the little kratom extract shots?" I was like, "No." And he's like, "It's the closest thing to a Percocet without taking a Percocet, but it's all natural."
Okay.
And I was sold.
Yeah.
I heard that, went straight to the gas station, and I got a couple, and I just drank one, waited about 15 minutes, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's right.
Really? Freaking Chevron.
Yeah. Smoke shops, gas stations. Yeah. And I was just like, gosh, I feel freaking good right now. And my addict mentality is like, I just struck gold.
Right.
All natural, non-addicting.
I got a loophole here.
Yeah. Like this is my thing. Little did I know that kratom has the exact same effects on the brain as opiates do. And I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
And so I was probably spending more money on kratom than I had on heroin.
Wow. So how much are these little?
So these little, they're about that big, and 15 milliliters for $23 a shot.
Yeah.
And I was probably getting 3 to 5 of them a day.
And probably harder to overdose since it's natural.
Yeah. So I was taking, you know, all 4 or 5 a day, and I felt good.
Yeah.
But there was one particular night where...
So you had slowed down on alcohol at this point?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, one thing at a time.
I switched one thing for another thing. Okay. And one particular night, I took maybe 5 of them, and I went into a seriously bad panic attack. Like, I can't explain it. If the people who've had panic attacks, you know, can probably feel what I'm trying to say. But this one lasted for probably a good like 7 hours. It was constant, just beating, and like I just couldn't see straight, and I honestly thought I was gonna die.
Yeah.
And so that's where the Xanax really came into play. And I would take, you know, every time I would take one of those little shots, I would pop a 1 milligram Xanax too. So I was taking 4 milligrams of Xanax a day with these 4 or 5 kratom shots a day.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much Xanax I was taking while I was taking these
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And that went on for a good year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then I knew that I had to try to stop because I was spending way too much money. And
Yeah.
my wife came to me again, and we had our daughter at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And it just very bad.
Yeah.
Very, very bad.
Yeah. So yeah, how did you get off that finally? Did you ever do rehab again?
No, didn't do rehab. I went to detox for only 2 days. And for everybody who's listening and watching, for Xanax, 2 days is nothing. Like your withdrawal literally has barely started in 2 days.
Okay.
And I thought heroin was the worst of the withdrawals.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was the top of the mountain. And benzos, by far the worst withdrawals I've ever gone through in my entire life. It's the physical pain of opiates, but it's you have that psychological aspect too, because obviously benzodiazepines mess up your brain so much that trying to get your brain back to normal, like I was having so many suicidal thoughts that like I've never had those in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I had never been in that dark of a place ever.
Yeah.
And the withdrawals of that lasted for probably a good month to a month and a half.
Yeah.
Like constant just knife in my heart pains every day. Always had that anxiety, and I just wanted to take a Xanax to mellow me out, but I couldn't. And it was very, very hard.
Yeah. Did you ever? So I've had a couple of friends I've lost to suicide, and I actually had a roommate that tried to kill himself like while I was home. I had to kind of, me and another buddy had to kind of stop him, and so I know that anyone that is in that space, like there's kind of an evolution, and you get to a point where it's just an ideation, but then it gets to a point where like, okay, I actually have a plan now where I'm gonna, and then there's takes a while to actually execute it usually. Did you get to that point where you actually had plans?
Yeah. It was so hard to see the plans that I wanted to achieve when you're going through those withdrawals or whatever. But I always knew, and I've seen myself like out of everything and not doing stuff. And I know the type of person and the type of just the individual that I can be. And that kind of motivated me to get through this. Like my wife and my daughter, without them, I would not be here at all.
Yeah, because no matter what hell you're in, you're like, I know I have 2 major things to live for.
Yeah. Yeah. And my daughter was only 8 months at the time, 9 months. And, for the first first year of her life, I was on something.
You're just on those crates.
Yeah. I was on something. And, you take a personal inventory of yourself, and especially when you're going through withdrawals and, what you've done to the people around you and how they perceive you now. And like, I just didn't want my daughter or my wife to see me every day like that. Like I want to be an example for my wife and my daughter as best as I could.
Yeah.
So it's a work in progress.
Totally. Tell me about your brother.
That's going to be a tough subject, but he's my best friend. It's he was someone that I could always run to.
He's your older brother.
Older brother,
Yeah.
you know, he was the older brother that you could just only imagine having, you know, to me in my eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny because the past like few days I've been thinking back in my head, and you know, an older brother has his group of friends, little brother has his group of friends.
Yeah.
From the time I was, 12 years old, I was always with him.
Yeah.
With his group of friends. Like everywhere he went, I was there. And for an older brother to let you in to his circle,
yeah,
it's a big deal.
Right.
And I felt so proud of the fact that I could, like, my brother let me in, you know? And on May 31st of 2023, so 7 months ago, I got a call at 11:05 p.m. from my little sister saying that my brother had died. I went into complete shock. I couldn't say anything. Me and my little sister had to go to my mom's house and wake her up from a dead sleep to tell her that her firstborn child had overdosed. The pain of losing someone that close is something that I'll go through for the rest of my life. I got the call from my little sister just screaming on the phone, saying Ryan's dead, Ryan's dead. And, I went into complete shock, didn't say anything on the phone. I couldn't comprehend what was being said to me. If we can back up just a little bit, I don't know why, but growing up with addiction, you see death all around you all the time. And I would always tell everyone around me, and even my wife up until now, that I always said, I don't know what I would do if my brother died, if I lost him. Like, I don't know what I'd do. I would go off the deep end.
Yeah.
A week before I got that call, I got another call that one of my best friends growing up, his name's Clyde Reevely, he overdosed and died. And, I left work, I was crying, and the second I got home, I told my wife, it's like, gosh, I don't know what I would do if I lost my brother.
Yeah.
Then a week later, I get the call that my brother had overdosed and died. And, it's hard because, one, I know that he didn't want to go. People can say, like, if it's their time, it's their time, which to a point I get that. But when you know in your heart that it wasn't his choice to die that night, it leaves a very, very bitter taste in your mouth. And that's something that will be there forever.
Yeah.
I was so mad at everyone, but I just held it in, and I cried, but like, I don't know, like, I always wanted to scream as loud as I could, but I just never did. And
You felt more angry than sad.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was more just like, why? Like, why did it have to be? Because, you know, by this point, I had cut off ties with everybody pretty much. And it's just me and my wife and my daughter.
Yeah.
He was my only friend, my best friend, the one person I confided in with for everything in my life. One person I looked to for gratification and acknowledgement, because, you know, my wife gives that to me, but like it wasn't even the same as it was coming from my brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the first few months were extremely hard for me, and they still are.
Yeah.
You know, I'll still break down.
I mean, yeah, it was only 7 months ago.
Yeah, it's still very, very fresh. But at the same time, I'm trying to find the lessons in all this. And I knew I always wanted to try to give back after the second time I went to treatment. You know, like I said, I was trying to get more spiritual. And one of those ways was trying to give back, help somehow. But I never got that extra push. I always felt like I was missing something. And when my brother died, the feeling that I got was literally him like pushing me into the fire and be like, here you go.
Yeah.
This is that last thing you needed to go about your life and tell our story,
Right.
to try to help one person out there. And so they don't have to go through what we're going through right now.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm just trying to tell my story. You know, there's, as dark as the world is, how your life is, everyone's life around you, I feel like life is nothing but lessons for you to learn.
Yeah.
Just to make your next days a little easier than the day before.
Yeah. And when you kind of remove yourself from the equation and say, like, what lessons can I, give to other people?
Yeah.
It becomes a lot, the purpose in your life becomes a lot more clear.
Yes.
Because if you're only ever living for yourself, it's so easy to be unsatisfied with life.
Yeah.
Like, there's a million reasons to be depressed.
Yeah.
There's a million reasons to lose hope. But if you're constantly looking for lessons to give to other people, not just to utilize yourself, but to spread, then it's kind of hard to be depressed.
Yeah.
I
mean, it is very hard to be depressed. Obviously, with losing a brother, you're still going to be depressed.
Yeah.
But like you said about purpose, when I was in treatment and all throughout that time, I didn't know what my purpose was. And, there's another silver lining about my brother's death is I feel like this is a very, very deep, rutted purpose that I need, and I need to get out to everyone that I can and just try to, I wouldn't necessarily say save someone, but just to know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And they can get through it.
Right.
Well,
yeah, I think like you were talking about earlier, like a lot of times people, they're just not ready to hear something.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can hear this when they are ready,
yeah,
then that's when it's going to help.
Yeah, and that's where the hope
right
comes in too.
Yeah.
What we're talking about at the very start of the episode. I still have my days where I will break down and I will just cry.
Yeah.
But I also truly believe that my brother can do more from where he's at right now than he could from where we're at.
Yeah.
I've seen signs of him, and I know that there is something more. Like, I'm a visual person, okay? Like, I believe in something after this life because my brother had shown me that there is something.
Yeah. Have you felt Have you felt closer to God through this?
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I talk to my brother every day. I have a little AR-15 bullet hanging from my rearview mirror and it has some of his ashes in it. And so I hold it and I'll just talk to him.
Yeah.
But if I can, tell you one of the signs that I got from him that made me like, oh my gosh, there is something over there. I'd love to share it with you.
Sure, please.
So me and my wife and my daughter were walking along a trail and I just look up to the sky and I was like, Ryan, if you are here with me right now, show me a blue feather. And we just went about our day and got back from our walk. And I was cooking food for my wife and my daughter. And I happened to look up at the TV and show that my daughter's watching. And the second I look up, a blue feather comes down from the screen. And then within 5 seconds after that, his fiance at the time texted me a picture and said, look at this blue feather I just saw outside of my door. Right after that, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like,
and what made you ask for a blue feather? That's wild.
Yeah. I wanted it to be something that wasn't.
I don't think I've ever said blue feather.
Exactly. I want it to be something that you don't see every day.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be something I can just, turn my head and I see it. Right. I want it to be far-fetched type of thing. I want it to be real. Mm-hmm. And for this to happen with the TV and the picture all in that matter of time, I have no doubt in my mind, in my heart, my soul, every fiber of my body that there is something past this life that is beautiful and is pure and is so much love. And I was always so scared to die, and I still have that fear. I think if you don't have a fear of dying, you're crazy. But it's a lot more peaceful now, knowing that that sign came through so vividly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And whatever you believe about God and how he structures things and how he operates, it's almost like, who cares? You know that he's out there,
right?
And he's watching over you. He's with your brother,
100%.
And I think the really cool thing about this is there's probably an added because I know whether you've been sober for 2 months or 20 years, there's always that little thing in the back of your head you're worrying about. I hope I never relapse. I hope it's really.
It's always a worry.
Sure.
Yeah.
But now you probably have this extra I got to do this for my guy. I got to stay. Obviously, you want to stay sober for you, for your wife, your kid.
Yeah.
But it's an extra thing that my guy, I'm not going to let you down.
Yeah. And that's huge, huge part of it, after his death, how easy it could have been for me to go numb all the pain that I was feeling.
You were probably super tempted.
Yeah. 100%. But you don't experience death like that very often.
Right.
Some people never experience losing someone that significant to you.
Yeah.
And I personally wanted to feel every single emotion that came with that.
Yeah.
And knowing that I didn't buckle made me super proud of myself.
Yeah.
I know it made my brother extremely proud of me. Sorry.
Oh, you're good, brother.
Just to know that I'm trying. It's just the word I'm trying to do things that won't only make me, my wife, my daughter proud, but will make him proud.
Yeah.
And that's just the biggest motivator of them all.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do good.
Yeah. And I appreciate you being so vulnerable. And the truth is, that's all any of us are doing, right?
Yeah.
We're just freaking trying.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like you're like, well, I'm actually not trying because I'm failing all the time. But it's like, I think I think we'd be surprised to know how often we're actually just doing our best,
Yeah.
and sometimes your best isn't good enough,
No.
but then you recalibrate, you reassess, and you try again. And I mean, that's what freaking life is,
Yeah. That's why they call it a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You know, you have your ups, you have your downs, you have your grief, you know, you just gotta roll with it. You know, you're gonna have those dark, dark times that you don't think you're gonna get out of.
Yeah.
But the sun will rise again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a new day. You know, it might seem like forever, but I mean, if you just take it one day at a time. So I would like to share a quote from you. I might botch it a little bit,
Yeah.
but this quote, don't know who it's from. It's a book, I believe, called like the Horse, the Boy, the Fox, and the Mole.
Okay.
And the boy and the horse are walking through this forest. The horse gets way down here, and the boy says, "I don't see a way through." And the horse looks back and says, "Well, can you see your next step?" And the boy says, "Yeah." And the horse says, "Then just take that." You know, we get so lost in looking so far down
Right.
the way. Oh, sorry.
You're good.
Looking so far down that we don't focus on the here, the now, the present, what we're feeling. We just want to get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and to be able to take all that pain, all that suffering, and kind of embrace it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's only going to make you stronger in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything that I have gone through, I don't regret anything because it's led me to where I'm at right this second
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
And the people that I've met, you know, I believe everyone's life, everything that has happened to him is meant to happen to him. And I have found new value in life. Things I took for granted. Like I probably took most things for granted,
Right. Sure.
you know, but now after losing someone like that,
Mm-hmm.
you look at life through a new lens, and you know that it could be taken away from you like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I realized that I want to spend the time that I have here on this earth doing the things that bring me joy and fill my heart with love. And I want to give love. And I just want to try to help people, man.
Yeah.
You know?
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love the idea of just sort of embracing all of your emotions,
Yeah.
right? Because the alternative is kind of to numb them, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And it's funny, I did that. The last couple breakups I've had have been pretty awful,
Yeah.
but I made kind of a conscious decision to really feel them and to not deflect any blame, deflect any emotion, and to just say, like, the reason I'm feeling all this pain is because I had something so beautiful, right? And so in a way, the pain is kind of beautiful.
It would be weird if you didn't feel pain.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
And I'm almost like, of course, no one wants pain
No.
because it's painful, but you're almost grateful for that hurt because it's proof that you had something really special.
yeah, you got something in here.
Yeah.
You know, you have a soul.
Yeah.
You know, if you are going through the pain.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And it makes it so, you know, you come out the other side and you realize, like, man, I sure don't want to go through this hell again, but I know that I can.
Yeah.
You know, I know that if the rest of my life is a never-ending string of heartbreak and disappointment, I can handle it.
Yeah.
You know,
You realize.
and I can find beauty in it.
100%.
And yeah, man. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on. I'd like to wrap up the episode in kind of a unique way. You might have to dig a little deep here, but I always ask if we could switch roles, and you could ask me one question, what would you ask?
Ooh.
It's a little harder when you don't know me super well.
Yeah.
This is our first time
I
meeting.
don't know you.
Yeah.
Who do you want to be as a person? Like, who do you truly want your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be when you leave this earth?
That's a good question. That's something that I actually think about a lot. I think part of it is as a creative person, like I want to leave behind a big legacy of work, a legacy of material and things that people can relate to forever. But mostly what I want to leave behind is almost on an individual basis where I want, like, say I die tomorrow, I want everyone, I almost imagine it like as if there's this documentary always following me. And I want when I die and they interview people about me, which they're not going to, but let's say
You never know.
let's say, you know, I'm super well known and they go and they try to interview everyone that's ever had contact with me. I want them all to tell good stories. And I want them all to be like, you know what, I didn't know Taylor super well, but like he helped me out this one day and he called me when I was going through it and he sent me this text one time that meant the world to me.
Yeah.
And so I think about these things often, and there's so many people that come into your life and most of them you won't ever get super close with.
Right.
But I want to have an effect on everyone I come in contact with, and I want it to be positive. And it's hard to do that in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just in a bad mood. You're annoyed at something, or somebody kind of does you wrong.
You're too busy.
Sure, but it's like I want everyone I've dated to be like, you know what, it didn't work out, but like Taylor was awesome.
Yeah.
Like I loved our time together, and yeah, I think it's cool because that's a never-ending like journey. I'm you know,
Yeah.
because obviously, like, not everybody on this earth probably has amazing things to say about me, but hopefully the majority do. And hopefully, as I move forward, the imprint that I leave can continually be a good thing.
You left an imprint on me, man.
So thanks,
I appreciate you for
dude.
letting me come on
here.
here.
I appreciate you, you know, aggressively making sure we get this episode done. And I think it's a beautiful story that's like, and even if you have no history or temptation to get into drugs or substance abuse, like everyone is touched by addiction. Everyone knows someone that's been through it. Yeah. And even if you're not going through it, if you can find ways to empathize and understand that journey a little bit better, I think you come out a more loving person.
Yeah, and even if someone's going through grief, you know, like there's a new day that's gonna come.
Yeah. I think I love the idea of hope, and it's something I've struggled with. But it's funny, every year I make a new playlist on Spotify. Right on January 1st, I start adding new songs, and I titled this one. It was about hope. It was this long quote. Like the name of this playlist is like a long quote about hope. But I got it from this book I was reading from Primo Levi, this Holocaust survivor, and I want hope to always be on my mind.
Right.
You know, I want to always, no matter what happens, I want hope to be something that just kind of rises from the ashes, no matter what I'm going through, because there's always reasons to like feel hopeless. Yeah. You know, even if it's just one little area of your life. Right. But I don't know, if you can just kind of hold on with white knuckles to hope.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think you can kind of get through anything.
Change the world, man.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you, Dustin. For everybody who listened, you know, if you have somebody that's, you know, struggling with addiction, struggling with substance abuse, maybe this is a good episode to show them. And maybe it's not the right timing. Maybe it's the episode was for you to sit on and think about. But yeah, please share it if it touched you, and I appreciate the listening, and we'll catch you next week. My guy.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, bro.
Appreciate it.